Welcome to the Young Turks. I am your host, Cenk. I say that from time to time, but not that often. I think you're aware of that. Anyway, I'm kind of in a slightly depressed mood today. I don't know if that'll affect the show. It probably will. Most people will tell you, no, we're objective and we take all of our emotions out of it, and it'll never affect the show. That's the kind of professionals we are. Well, that's probably true for a lot of TV guys, because since they're robots. I, on the other hand, was eating a sandwich that involved butter, but of course I was, and just went like this with the sandwich pretty much as I spilled it down the front of my shirt. But those are minor points. I am actually a little bit bummed about the news itself. You're going to see why. Our first story is, as you know, probably by the time you're watching this, devastating. It's about the attack in Pakistan. Later, we will make fun of Ted Cruz. That'll be fun. That'll lighten the mood. Elizabeth Warren brings us good news, and so does Andrew Hawkins. If you haven't seen what he said yet, he's the football player on the Browns who wore the shirt in honor of Tamir Rice and Crawford. You gotta listen to that, because he is phenomenal. Yeah, I'm gonna call him an American hero. What are you gonna do about it? Okay, maybe as the show goes on, we'll get in a better mood. But right now, I give you bad news. Let's go to it. So, Peshawar, Pakistan, another day. Now, unfortunately, another horrible terrorist attack. Now, this is significantly worse than others that we have seen. Now, we've seen some really terrible ones. So, how are they going to outdo themselves? Well, the Taliban in this case hit a school filled with children. And it wasn't a minor hit, it was a major, massive, devastating hit. 141 people were killed. Of them, 132 were children. The students were 12 to 16 years old. This was the Army Public School and Degree College, but don't get confused, it is for kids. Taliban claimed that they were trying to avoid the really young kids. Wow, thank you so much. Didn't really do the job, if that's what your goal was, and of course it's not. So here is the Taliban representative. They said, we selected the Army school for the attack because the government is targeting our families and females. We want them to feel the pain. Well, on that note, yes, they do feel the pain. My guess is that soon you will also feel the pain, and round we go in these endless wars. In fact, the bombing of Taliban started nearly immediately in Pakistan thereafter. If you didn't want your neighborhoods being hit, this is a bizarre way of going about it, because I am positive that the entire country of Pakistan, let alone the rest of the world, is enraged by these actions, and there will be consequences. And unfortunately, this never has an end, and then they will come to strike back, and here we go again in circles. Okay, now, this is amazing. This comes from Jamaat ut Dawa. Their leader put out a message. Now, you might not know who those guys are. They're the ones who did the attack in Mumbai, in India, killed about 166 people. I mean, it was a devastating terrorist attack. And even those guys say, whoa, the Taliban has gone too far here. Here's their statement. This was carried out by the enemies of Islam. It is open terrorism. These are barbarians operating under the name of jihad. So here is the leader of another terrorist group saying, wow, you guys have gone too far. You're giving jihad a bad name. Got news for you. It already had a pretty bad name, okay? So this is amazing. We now live in a world where Al-Qaeda warns you about ISIS and say, those guys are crazy, they're much worse than us. Now you've got people that are much worse than the people who killed hundreds of people in India. Remember that story that was a couple years back? They were shooting throughout the streets and they couldn't find them, and it took so long, and they killed all those people. Now these guys are saying, get a load. What we did was nothing compared to these guys, right? So, and as this thing goes round and round, it picks up steam and it gets worse and worse and worse. So Khorassani, who's the leader of the Taliban, who took credit, if you can imagine that, for this attack, said that the attackers had been ordered to shoot the older students, but not the young children. So, well, you shot 12 to 16-year-olds. Where did you draw the line? And it doesn't appear that they drew very many lines because it appeared the shooting was very indiscriminate as they went classroom to classroom. So here are some witnesses. Mudassar Abbas says, I saw 6 or 7 people walking class to class and opening fire on children. That doesn't appear that they were asking the kids' age, right? They were shooting in the mall. Here's another student who said, while we were being moved out, we saw bodies of our classmates lying in the corridors. Can you imagine? Now, here's a kid who was shot in both legs. He's hiding under his desk, but he doesn't want to make a sound because he's afraid that if he screams out in pain as he's been shot, that they'll know he's still alive and kill him. So he says, I folded my tie and pushed it into my mouth so that I wouldn't scream. Well, this is exactly what terror looks like. It is unbelievably terrifying. And, you know, you got the people who survived, and there are dozens and dozens who are injured, of course. You've got the grieving families. You've got the kids who were killed. You've got the teachers who were killed. And understand this, to the best of our knowledge, the victims were also all Muslim. So this was done in some perverse interpretation of Islam. Although as an agnostic, I don't believe there is a great interpretation of Islam. There are good parts of the Quran talking about, you know, how everyone is equal in the eyes of Allah. Yes, yes, there are good parts. And then there are parts, just like in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, that can be interpreted to carry out this kind of evil. And unfortunately, fundamentalism throughout the world has gotten worse and worse, and we have arrived at this point. The final quote that I want to give you is from Tahir Ali. He is a father of a 14-year-old who was killed. And as he was recovering his son's body from the hospital, he said, my son was my dream. My dream has been killed. What do we do in a world full of fundamentalists who resort to violence, who don't listen to reason, who actively fight against logic and reason? You can't have a conversation with them. You can't reason with them. You can't talk sense into them. They don't care about sense. They actively oppose sense. You hit them, they hit you back. You bomb from the sky, they say, oh, you killed my civilians. And sometimes that is true. Okay? Or you killed my leaders. So that is oftentimes also true. They say, okay, now I'm going to respond by killing your children. Then we go and we bomb them more. So violence hasn't gotten us to the answer. We've been doing this war on terror for over 13 years now. And where has it brought us? Where has it brought Pakistan? Where has it brought all of these countries? On the other hand, as I see this, every human instinct in my body, and I'm sure for a lot of you, is to strike back. I mean, as I read that father's quote about his son, I mean, the anger that rises up in all of us is undeniable. There are no easy answers here. I do know one of the problems, and that is the religion itself that says, do not listen to reason, get rid of logic, and sense be damned. Only rely on an ancient text that was oftentimes written by power-hungry men for their own purposes thousands of years ago. Rely on that, take the most vicious parts, and then perpetrate that violence throughout the world. And we're supposed to just sit here and respect that. Well, I don't respect it at all, at all. Your religion, and it's not just Muslims, it's also Christians, it's also Hindus who strike out against Muslims, and lately in Myanmar, Buddhists who strike out against Muslims. It happens to all the different groups. There are victims, and Muslims often do it against other Muslims, as happened in this case. But all of your religions, with all of their nonsense texts and dogma, they are wrong. God did not speak to a bush There was no such person as Moses. There's hardly any historical record of a guy named Jesus, let alone what he said, which was documented decades and decades later, and then agreed upon which text they would keep and lose hundreds of years later after this supposed Jesus of Nazareth lived. And then the history of Muhammad is, yes, historical. It's also historical that he wanted land and power and women, and he used this text to get it. That I understand. You can call it terrible, but we've had empires throughout the history of the world. What I can't understand is 1,400 years later, in the case of the New Testament, 2,000 years, Old Testament, more than 2,500 years later, we would be listening to people who had no earthly idea how things worked. They thought the stars were little holes that God had pricked into heaven so you could see the light of heaven. They didn't know anything. They were almost literally cavemen. They made up these stories so that they would have something to believe and something to make sense of the world, because they didn't have science then, they didn't have facts, they didn't have the knowledge that we have today. And we have those things. We know they're not pinholes in the sky that brings us the light of heaven. We know that they are stars and galaxies and universe. We know these things, yet people still cling on to this madness, which leads to this result. It doesn't always lead to it. Not every religious person is a bad person. Of course, my hero is Martin Luther King Jr. He was a reverend, talked about Jesus all the time. I understand that. But religious people, you know, you certainly have a responsibility too. Read your books, read the Bible, read the Quran. And don't skip over the atrocious and vicious and honestly genocidal part of the books. And they're in all of them. And don't point fingers at the other religions, pretending the one that you happen to be born into is just the perfect one. You got so lucky. Isn't that funny how everybody got lucky that the religion they're born into is the right one, and everybody else got unlucky when they were born into a different religion? Do you not have any sense of reason? How could that possibly be true? But yet you all cling on to it, and you all make excuses, and you have rationale, and if we dare to tell you what is obviously true, you get so offended. Well, this is what I'm offended by. When 141 people die and 132 kids die in that school because somebody believed that their sky god told them to go kill kids. That's what I'm offended by. And that's what religion has brought us. End it. End it. Let's be done with these old, horrible, violent myths that have done us so much damage. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let me read a couple of your tweets because I think they're relevant in a day like today. First, Jeremy Varner says, as I kept hearing throughout the day, the smallest coffins are the heaviest. On the other hand, Nexus Hexa says that TYT is provocateur politics. They want to make sure the government responds with a sizable response that prove oppression. If you think we have some sort of agenda that we want more bombings or something, and that's why we're talking about this story, how do you want? That's first insane. Second of all, how do you want me to talk about this story? Should I downplay it? I mean, how would you talk about the story? What's your response? So I'm puzzled by that. I hope I misunderstood it because it makes no sense to me whatsoever. And Venture says, agree in theory, Cenk, about what I said about religion, but is this attack about religion or more about despair? Well, the answer is both. And so that's what drives me crazy about both sides, whether it is the people defending religion saying it's never about religion. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They said it was about religion, and they use religion to justify it. Now, that doesn't mean that religion is the sole problem on earth, and that's the only reason that these guys even did it. yes, we live in a gray world. We live in a nuanced world. It could be several different factors. Are they also, in despair because they have no power and they feel that their government is picking on them, the Western governments are picking on them? There are elements of that, of course. And to look at religion without the socio-political context, well, that drives me crazy as well. And I think I've shown that in a 3-hour interview I did with Sam Harris, let alone God knows how many times I've said it on the show, right? But the answer is not black and white. It's not either religion or not religion. But if you think the religion didn't have anything to do with those attacks today, I think that you're kidding yourself. Of course it did. Of course it did. So, all right. So, look, some days I miss radio, man. Okay, anyway. Let's go on. I got a lot of stories to get to, guys. And so let me give you more. The next one's not any better, but it does get better after this one, okay? So Pew Research Center asks American people, what do you think about torture? And they're largely okay with it. Super frustrating. I wish it weren't the case. And I often talk about how Americans, based on the polls, on facts, are progressive on almost every issue. And it's true. You can go down to all the policy issues, Social Security, taking on the big banks, tax cuts for the rich, defense, they're with us. Immigration reform, they're with us on almost every issue. But on this issue, which should be the easiest, American people largely not with us. So now let me give you the exact numbers. Percentage saying the CIA's interrogation methods, which were obviously clearly torture, were justified. 51% say that they were justified. Only 29% say not justified, and 20% said don't know. 51% looks closer than it is. As you can tell, once you put don't know in there, it's not really close. Those are not good numbers, but they don't get any better from there. Do you believe that it provided intelligence, these CIA techniques, right, that prevented terror attacks? Yes, 56% say they provided intelligence. But a report that just looked at 6 million pages of CIA documents, they didn't make up the documents. They looked at CIA documents and they found out that it does not have an effect. They did not provide intelligence. Yet 56% say they did, 28% say no, and 16% say they don't know. At least say the 16% I understand. They're not paying attention. They didn't read the report. They didn't see the news about the report. And the news is maddening because they always played 50-50. The Senate says this, the CIA says that. In fact, I'm going to have 3 guys who are ex-CIA guys on now to tell you about how it was all okay and it provided a lot of great intelligence. Then I'm going to have Dick Cheney on to defend it, and then I'm going to have a mealy-mouthed Democrat on to kind of waver on it. So, and then at the end, you get this impression. But it's not just the media. These are fairly overwhelming numbers. People in general are saying, who cares about facts? Those guys hit us, those guys. 25% were innocent, roughly. They're in those guys. So this does not speak well of humanity, these numbers. Now, the last one is the most interesting, if you ask me. Do you believe that the tactics provided intelligence that prevented terror attacks? No, that's, of course, as usual, the wrong graphic. Here, let me tell you what the real question there was. Okay. Do you agree with the decision to release Senate committee report? 42% say it's the right decision. 43%, a plurality, says it's the wrong decision. 15% says don't know. So you didn't even want to see it. You literally wanted to say, I don't see no evil, right? Or in this case, since they don't think it was evil in the first place, see, no evil. No torture, I'm not buying it. It worked, despite the facts that tell me that it clearly did not work. And plus, you shouldn't have even showed it to me in the first place. Now, I guarantee you a lot of those people in that group are also the ones that say, the big government, they're here to oppress us and they're doing things in secret. Yeah, they're torturing people in secret. And when they tell you about it, you say, God damn it, why'd you tell me? Because you want to avert your eyes, you don't want to see it because it makes you uncomfortable. When you saw the Abu Ghraib pictures, you realized it was torture and there was no way to deny it. So now you don't want to see the new pictures. It turns out, according to Joe Lieberman of all people, there's over 2,000 pictures of abuses, most of which is torture. Here, let me read you a quote of some of what's in the new pictures. These are the old pictures from Abu Ghraib, and that became an international scandal, and that became undeniable once you saw the pictures. But apparently people are not just knuckleheads, they're willfully ignorant. They want to be ignorant. They don't want to see the truth. Now, what's in the new pictures? Some photos show American troops posing with corpses. Others depict U.S. forces holding guns to people's heads or simulating forced sodomization. What happened? I thought there was no rape when you did the rectal feeding, the rectal hydration, and you did it with the largest hose you could find. It said I thought it was all fine. Oh, but you don't want to see it, because if you see it, you'll realize, well, that's obviously rape. And oh, look at that there. We're posing with a guy we tortured to death. And here's another guy we're threatening. Oh, when I see it, I can't deny it. And that's inconvenient, because I'd like to keep denying it. I'd like to have them continue to do torture, even though the facts are in and it doesn't work, because it's not about that. It's cathartic. They got us and we got them back, which then leads them to want to get us back. And in fact, that's why they're not releasing the pictures. Obama said he would. Remember when he said he would be the most transparent administration in history? That was a good one. All he's doing now is actively covering up for the crimes of the Bush administration. He was supposed to release the pictures in 2009, and right as he was preparing to release the pictures, he came out in a surprise press conference and said, I'm not going to release them. The Pentagon doesn't want them released. It would endanger the troops. I know, how many times do we say, no. The torture itself endangered the troops. That's why you shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. And plus, it endangers our troops because now, since we do it, the enemy gets to say, well, since you do the torture, we can do the torture too. Yeah, you say, oh, they might have done it anyway. Aren't we supposed to be better than them? That's why you don't want to see the pictures, because you want to continue with this fantasy that we're better than them. In fact, perfect example of that is, let me go to video 10 here, is from Fox and Friends. Kilmeade is going to basically pretty much accidentally admit it. Listen to what he says.
And keep in mind, the worst could be yet to come. Later on this week, we're going to find out if the Obama administration will be successful or how hard they will fight to stop the releasing of hundreds of photos of the interrogations, various things that happened in Afghanistan that would not make us look. And keep in mind, the worst could be yet to come. Later on this week, we're going to find out if the Obama administration will be successful or how hard they will fight to stop the releasing of hundreds of photos of the interrogations, various things that happened in Afghanistan that would not make us look like the benevolent people we want to portray ourselves are, because we're doing this thing, we're at war.
We don't want those pictures released because it would make us look like the benevolent people we're trying to pretend to be. Oops, did I say that out loud? Then he had to panic, add the last half sentence, because we're at war and we had to do it. Right, of course. And did you notice the first part of that statement? Obama is now trying and fighting hard to make sure those pictures are never released. The reason he claimed he couldn't release them in 2009 was because we had all those troops in Iraq and they would be endangered. Well, they're not in Iraq anymore. So what was your excuse in 2012? Well, Panetta didn't give an excuse. His defense secretary just said, I'm not releasing the pictures, deal with it. And now they're in court fighting to make sure that the Bush torture pictures are never released from the guy who told you he was going to bring you change. And apparently, savvy political move, because the American people are made uncomfortable with it. They just want to pretend that it works and close their eyes. So I guess in a sense, Obama's giving them what they want. I thought we lived in a democracy where we were supposed to know what our government's up to and then say whether it's okay or not okay based on the actual information. But if some of you out there who are too scared to look at the pictures, are scared of democracy and how it's supposed to work, and don't want to know what your government's up to, that's really, really sad. You just want to let some authoritarian figure do things for you without seeing what they're up to, and then if they happen to torture people, including innocent people, bow your head. Some of you call yourselves conservatives or libertarians. That's what a conservative is? You bow your head to big government and let them operate in the dark? And sometimes torture innocent people? That's what your definition of a conservative is? Pathetic, man. And by the way, if you agree with it and you're a libertarian, you're also an idiot. And if you're a liberal and you think torture is great, you might be the dumbest of them all. Okay. No, but Obama said not to release the pictures, and what Obama said is always right. I don't want, if Obama says not to see it, then I don't want to see it. All right, let's go forward. Let's talk about good news, man. So Andrew Hawkins is received for the Cleveland Browns. We recently told you about this great protest that he did. Look, it's very simple. It's not like it was this over-the-top action or anything. He just wore a shirt on game day that said justice for Tamir Rice and John Crawford. And in the back said the real battle for Ohio. Now remember, it's the Cleveland versus Cincinnati, and that's what they normally call the game. And he's right. I mean, that's really, for the people of Ohio, what's at stake here, not a football game. Of course, the Cleveland cops were outraged. They demanded an apology, which is so comical. But what a lot of people haven't given you is what Andrew Hawkins actually said in the locker room. Now, these are not scripted words. His PR agent didn't write it. He just said this completely off the cuff. Now, we're going to show you some of it, and then I'm going to read you the rest because I think it's so powerful.
My mom has taught me my entire life to respect law enforcement. I have family, close friends who are incredible police officers, and I tell them all the time how they are much braver than me for it. Unfortunately, my mom also taught me that just as there are good police officers, there are some not so good police officers that would assume the worst of me without knowing anything about me for reasons I can't control. To me, justice means that the innocent should be found innocent. It means that those who do wrong should get their due punishment. Ultimately, it means fair treatment. So a call for justice shouldn't offend or disrespect anybody. A call for justice shouldn't warrant an apology.
Apparently, this is outrageous, according to the Cleveland cops. How dare you? Remember, they shot Tamir Rice within 2 seconds of seeing him. He was 12 years old, had a toy gun, not a real gun. They never gave him a chance to put down his toy gun. They just killed him. But apparently, calling for justice on that is outrageous. But let me give you more of what Andrew Hawkins said. He said, look, being a police officer takes bravery. He said, and I understand that they're put in difficult positions and have to make those snap decisions. As a football player, I know a little bit about snap decisions, obviously on an extremely lesser and non-comparative scale, because when a police officer makes a snap decision, it's literally a matter of life and death. That's a hard situation to be in, but if the wrong decision is made based on preconceived notions or the wrong motives, I believe there should be consequence. Because without consequence, naturally, the magnitude of the snap decisions is lessened, whether consciously or unconsciously. Think about how smart a point that is. He's saying, look, I'm not saying all Cleveland cops are racist. I'm saying a lot of cops are brave, and I understand, but you're going to be forced into making a snap decision, and we've got to explore what preconceived notions you have, because you're going to act maybe even unconsciously in that snap moment, where you got to act right away. And if you've got things in the back of your head that's going to lead you to making the wrong decision when it's a matter of life and death, that's something we should address. It's not like he's calling them bad guys and vicious racists. None of that. He's making a perfectly sensible point. But of course, the cops don't want to listen to that. All they did was they came on air on MSNBC after seeing his statements and yelled at him some more. But let me give you more context of his statements. Hawkins went on to say, I understood there was going to be a backlash, and that scared me, honestly. But deep down, I felt like it was the right thing to do. If I was to run away from what I felt in my soul was the right thing to do, that would make me a coward, and I can't live with that. God wouldn't be able to put me where I am today, as far as I've come in life, if I was a coward. Then he went on to say, I understood there was... Oh, come on, guys. Hold on, there's a repeat in the graphics again. Let me give you where it picks up. Okay. So then he started talking about his own son as well. And Hawkins said, as you well know, and it's well documented, I have a 2-year-old little boy. That same 2-year-old little boy that everyone said was cute when I jokingly threw him out of the house earlier this year. It was obviously something he did that caught the attention of the press there. He was kidding around with his kid. That little boy is my entire world. And the number one reason for me wearing the T-shirt was a thought of what happened to Tamir Rice happening to my little Austin scares the living hell out of me. And my heart was broken for the parents of Tamir and John Crawford, knowing they had to live that nightmare of a reality. I ask this question every time. Do you have kids? You have kids? I mean, even if you don't have kids, come on, it's fairly easy to understand. If you, like him, you got a 2-year-old, and you're worried that one day he's going to be a 12-year-old, and one day he's going to be playing on a playground, and one day somebody's going to make a snap decision about him, and they're not even going to give him a chance, and it's going to last 2 seconds. Wouldn't you be concerned? Wouldn't you look out for justice? Finally, he said, so like I said, I made the conscious decision to wear the T-shirt. I felt like my heart was in the right place. I'm at peace with it. And those that disagree with me, this is America. Everyone has a right to their First Amendment rights. Those who support me, I appreciate your support. But at the same time, support the causes and people and the injustices that you feel strongly about. Stand up for them. Speak up for them. No matter what it is, because that's what America's about, and that's what this country was founded on. How can you possibly disagree with that? He's now saying, look, even if you disagree with me, stand up for what you think is right. Now, I happen to think this is right and that I had a responsibility to act, that I would have been a coward if I didn't act. So I did what a good American is supposed to do, speak out. It is the most fundamental right Americans have. Yet, the cops in Cleveland are outraged. How dare he? They said it was pathetic and that he owed them an apology. You be the judge. Okay, now let's go to those cops. They want Jeffrey Follmer is the police officer who's going to step up here and tell us what a terrible person Andrew Hawkins is, the Browns player who obviously made the statement about Tamir Rice and John Crawford on his shirt, and he's going to tell us who should apologize to who.
Well, first off, he doesn't have the clear view of the police conduct. He's calling for justice on 2 officers that were called to do their job with a male that had a gun inside a park, that they had to defend themselves and use deadly force on him. So it's not a call for justice. They were justified. And Cleveland police officers work with the Cleveland Browns hand in hand, and when he disrespects 2 of our officers, he's disrespecting everybody else.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we disrespect you? You shot the kid dead in 2 seconds. Justified. Hey, listen, man, have just a shred of humanity and say, hey, man, we feel sick about what happened there. You know, they made a decision in that moment. You want to defend that decision? Say, look, I defended because we have a hard job and yada, all the bullshit you normally say. But don't go and tell us that they had no other choice. They were absolutely justified in shooting within 2 seconds. Nobody, come on, man. But the sick thing is some people do believe that because they want to believe it. No. Black people are dangerous, man. You got to shoot the 12-year-olds before you give them a chance to put anything down. Justified. And he's disrespecting all of us. How about Tamir Rice's family? How about Tamir Rice? Did you disrespect him when you shot him dead? God damn it. Okay, more from this jackass. Yes, I disrespect you, idiot. Go ahead.
But, okay, you guys disagree on that. Why should he apologize to you? Why shouldn't you apologize to him? You have a disagreement.
We're not apologizing to anybody. I mean, justice, calling for justice on 2 of our officers, they need to do it to us because they're disrespecting our officers on a job we do hard every day and a job that 2 officers were put in a position to by a male's actions. You know, he disrespected police officers who were out there doing their job. He's surrounded by police officers. When you're talking about 2 of us that were put in a situation like these 2 where you're talking about all of us.
You know, isn't it funny because they always say, like, oh, these black thugs, these right-wing idiots and stuff, right? That, oh, these black thugs, they're always talking about respect, how we didn't respect them enough, and they feel dissed or disrespected. You can just see O'Reilly saying it, right? How about this thug? How about this guy who's going, I tell you, I was disrespected, man. We shot that kid dead right away. We didn't even fucking look. But how dare you fucking disrespect us, right? Hey, you know we surround you. You sound like a mafia asshole, okay? Is that disrespectful enough for you? Hey, next time before you shoot a kid dead, why don't you ask him to put the thing down, whatever it is, his toy down? Why don't you look first? Why don't you ask questions first? Why don't you say freeze first? Yes, I don't respect that. I don't respect you killing our children. More.
In the statement, you talk about providing, serving and providing security for the stadium. How is that relevant?
Well, a lot of police officers work there. We are with the Browns organization. When you talk about 2 of our officers, doing a justified shooting, you're talking about all of us. Any one of us could have been in that circumstance.
Sure, but I mean, are you implying that it's relevant somehow? Are you implying that that security would change because of this disagreement?
No, we wouldn't change. We're here for the community. We're here for the people that go to the Browns games. We're here for the public.
Unless, of course, we're shooting him dead. Say, hey, listen, why did you make the threat then? He's surrounded by us, and in the original statement we said, hey, we provide security for the stadium. So what does that mean? Why did you bring that up? Why did you bring it up? It's either a threat or you're saying, hey, you know what, maybe we'll pull that security because we feel disrespected. So you're on your own. Well, what are you saying, right? No, because you want to go out there, you want to kill kids, and then you want to threaten people. Oh, I've said, I'm sorry, did I say too much? You want to kill kids? That's too much, right? I hope that you don't want to actively kill them. That's not why you're going out to do it. But when you show me disregard for human life like this, we're here to protect the community. That's why we don't ask any questions. We put a bullet in them right away. And it's not an isolated incident in Ohio. John Crawford also didn't have a real gun. They also shot him dead in 15 seconds in a Walmart. And then they browbeat his girlfriend afterwards, trying to get her to admit that he was dangerous. You already saw that it wasn't a real gun. And those 2 incidents are not alone. They fire hundreds of bullets at these 2 other unarmed passengers. Same Ohio cops, right? Oh, gee, you disrespect one of us. You disrespect all of us, right? Yeah, I'm disrespecting you. You put 20 bullets apiece in those 2 passengers. They were also unarmed. And then they had the nerve to sue afterwards, saying, how dare you suspend us for 3 days? For 3 days! More from this meathead.
There's a video of this, and everything speaks for itself. Their action, the male's action, spoke for itself. I mean, the video clearly showed, and by the officer's statement, that they were justified in the deadly force.
You're saying the video clearly shows that the 12-year-old boy was an imminent lethal threat to the officers?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you didn't see it, but yeah, absolutely. This shooting was justified, and like I said, it's a tragic that it was 12-year-old, but it was justified. Well, it depends what you're saying, what's unarmed. I mean, this male was obviously he wasn't unarmed. He had what they thought to be a gun, and they also thought him to be 20 years old. If he's 20 years old, we're not sitting here today. How about this? Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. I think that eliminates a lot of problems. I have kids too. They know how to respect the law. They know what to do when a police officer comes up to them. I think the nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
Listen to what the officer said. You killed him in 2 seconds. He didn't have time to listen to what you said. This Orwellian prick, we just saw the video. We've seen the video a million times. You pull up and you shoot him. You pull up and you shoot him. 1,000, 1,000, and he's dead. What orders? Be respectful. Tamir Rice must have disrespected him. He didn't listen in 2 seconds flat. That's why they put a bullet through him. The number 1 crime in America is disrespecting these meathead cops. He said it was justified because it was an imminent lethal threat. It's a fucking toy gun. How could it be an imminent lethal threat? Even afterwards, this isn't at the moment. It's not like he doesn't know the facts. We know it was a toy. No, lethal threat anyway. Imminent. Why should we respect you if you're all a bunch of cowards who think, oh my God, everything's a threat? That 12-year-old, he could have been a 20-year-old. I mean, he's black. I don't know. He's such a threat. Everything's a threat. Everything's a threat. I'm going to shoot everything in my sight. Respect me. Respect me. How can I respect you? I mean, at a bare minimum, you're a coward. You shoot everything within 2 to 15 seconds because you're so scared. You're scared of your own shadow. And then you demand respect. Just, for Christ's sake, be a human for a second and say, we're so sorry that 12-year-old kid died, man. Obviously, we didn't mean that. Is that too hard to say? Is it too hard to say, we didn't mean to kill your 12-year-old son? We're so sorry about that. The fact that it turned out to be a toy gun and he was 12, we feel sick about that. We wish it hadn't happened. Is that too hard to say? Apparently it is. And instead, he demands an apology from Andrew Hawkins, who is seeking justice for this by wearing a shirt. No, Mr. Follmer, I don't respect you at all, not one scintilla. And just because you wear a badge and you carry a gun doesn't mean you get to intimidate the rest of us, okay? Again, that's what the mob does. You better respect me. That's what thugs do. You better respect me because I have a gun. I know you have a gun, but I'm not as much of a coward as you are. No, I don't respect you. You didn't earn my respect. You earned my disrespect by murdering our kids. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. If you're wondering if I'm biased on the issue, I am. I will admit my bias here. I have a godson who's African American. I don't want him getting killed. JR brings wine to basketball. I don't want him in danger. Yeah, I'm biased. I'm biased because I care about people, and I want everybody to be treated the same. I don't know anybody in Peshawar, but I was really pissed about that too. You want to call that biased? Okay, go ahead and call it biased, okay? If you're not pissed about it and you think it's no big deal because it isn't somebody you know, then you're a dick, okay? Now, let me give you one more depressing story, and I promise I'll end on a positive note. All right. So we're told that we have an African-American president, so everything's solved. Race doesn't matter at all, right? Now, we've shown you study after study that shows otherwise. You know, you've got a black hand holding up something on eBay as opposed to a white hand, and people will, on average, pay them less, trust them less, etc. It's unbelievable. Just at the sight of a black hand, they don't even know it. It's subconscious. African-American sounding names get 50% less callbacks on the same exact resume. We've been through all that, right? And obviously, you see what's happening with law enforcement throughout the country. But I want to give you stunning numbers from the Pew Research Center on average household income. Average household wealth. Now, this is an important difference, right? Income is your salary every year. Wealth is how much you have accumulated, what you own, your house, your car, your couch, whatever it might be, right? Or any cash that you might have. First of all, we've all taken a huge hit as a country together, right? Back in 2007, the average wealth of a U.S. household was $135,700. In 2010, that dropped down to $82,300, right? Of course, in 2008, we had that gigantic crash. And then in 2013, it's actually gotten worse than 2010. It's $81,400. We're losing wealth as we go along. So this is why the country is dissatisfied. And this is not racial. This goes across all races, as you're about to see, right? So stock market is roaring again. The banks are roaring again. The rich are doing great. Now, it's not just the top 1%. It's actually the top 0.01% that have taken a tremendous amount of money because the rules are rigged in their favor. Now, meanwhile, has your wealth recovered? Your family recovered? No. So, and the Democrats and Obama wonder why people are still mad. Yes, all the lovely rich people you know are doing great, and their portfolios are back in great shape. But that's not true for the rest of us. Now, look at whites, for example. In 2007, the average household wealth for whites was $192,500. It's not bad, man. We are a rich country. That is not bad. Now, in 2010, it dropped all the way to $138,600. In 2013, it has actually gotten a little better for whites, $141,900 overall. Now, I'm going to show you blacks next. And so you're going to think, well, okay, we know the black number is going to be a little less. Well, as you can see there, no. Not a little less, a lot less. In 2007, the average household wealth was $19,200. It dropped down to $16,600 in 2010. And amazingly, in 2013, it has continued to plummet down to $11,000. Latinos are not much better off than African Americans. In 2007, they were at $23,600, dropped down to $16,000 in 2010, and in 2013, they're down to $13,700. Two things jump out at you there. One is a giant disparity between whites, blacks, and Latinos. The other is that whites have recovered a little bit in average household wealth, but blacks and Latinos not only have not recovered, they continue to spiral down. So where's the recovery? Where's the recovery? All the rules are still set in favor of the banks, in favor of the richest and most powerful people in the country. They have recovered just fine, but not really the rest of us. Now, let's go back to the disparities between the races. The median household headed by a white person has a net worth 13 times greater than the median black-headed household. Now, if you're an African-American child born into a family in America today, you didn't have anything to do with that. It's just a family you happen to be born into, right? I hope we can all agree to that. That's obvious, right? Well, you start at a 13-to-1 disadvantage. Now, money's not everything in the world, of course, and it doesn't mean you can't make it. You can. But can anyone really deny that you start at a fundamental disadvantage? You know the old saying, money makes money, right? And so if you've got more wealth, well, you get a better credit. And better credit leads to lower interest rates. It leads to the ability to buy a house, which then creates more wealth. I'm giving you one of dozens of examples I can give you of how money makes a big difference. And anyone that lives in the real world obviously understands that. It's not the only thing, but it's a huge thing. So on average, blacks in this country start at a 13-to-1 disadvantage. And to say that everything is fine and everything is equal is counterfactual. It's just not true. Now, what you do about that is a different question. And those are good and healthy policy debates to have. But don't pretend that we don't have the disparity, because we most certainly do. Now, one more wrinkle here. In fact, they call it an upsetting wrinkle here, and they're right. These gaps exist even regardless of income. This is really interesting. As Demos's Matt Bruning showed earlier this year, likewise, he has shown that racial and ethnic wealth gaps exist regardless of education. Now, we're told, well, that's okay. You can live the American dream and you can become rich. Yes, you can. But on average, African Americans, even if they get rich, are not nearly as rich as white people. On average, and this is the more upsetting part, even if you get an education, we're told that's the ticket to the American dream. Well, the gap still persists. So there are many, many factors here. And of course, as you grow up, obviously every person becomes an adult and takes responsibility for their own actions. But if I said to you, I'm going to put you in a game here, whatever the game might be, and you're going to be at a 13-to-1 disadvantage. So let's say we're playing basketball. You're one person, the other team's got 13 people. And then I go, what? You got personal responsibility. You got a ball. You can shoot it. You can still make a basket. Yeah, that's true, but that's certainly not the whole equation. So understand that this is the reality for a lot of Americans today. Closing your eyes to it isn't going to make it any better. Actually understanding it and actively looking to fix it so we're all on a relatively equal playing field, not because we want equality of results, but because we want equality of opportunity. I think that is more than fair. So open your eyes and let's all work together towards a real solution. Okay. Finally, on the positive end of things, okay, we go to Elizabeth Warren. Now, in this latest omnibus bill, we got screwed. We got screwed in a couple of different ways. For example, campaign donations to political parties are now 10x of what they used to be. Multiplied them by 10. They're so brazen. They're unbelievable. And there's many other parts of it that are atrocious, but the one that really got under everybody's skin, rightfully so, is the banks deciding that they'd like to gamble with your money again. So they put a provision in there, which all the Republicans voted for, and half the Democrats basically voted for, enough of the Democratic Party that it could vote, pass. And to be fair, there was Republicans who voted against the bill. Now, it's not because of this provision. They voted against it because, oh, Obama's executive actions on immigration, blah, 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 blah. I've not yet seen a Republican go on the record, go on TV and say, damn it, I can't believe they gave Wall Street all this money. From time to time, such Republicans exist, and sometimes they even fight back against some of the abuses of crony capitalism. I love to see that. I'd love to give them credit. I'd love it if they gave a speech like Elizabeth Warren did and that we're about to show you. Haven't seen it yet. Okay. But basically, the establishment both Republicans and Democrats decided, no, we're going to let them gamble with your depositor money. And if they lose it, it's FDIC, it's government-backed. So they'll get bailed out just like they did before. Now, the scope of the gamble is unbelievable. There is a derivatives market where they do Uber trading, okay, insane trading. The size of that derivatives market is $700 trillion. Like, you literally can't fathom it. It's not 700 million, it's not 700 billion, it's $700 trillion of gambling. And now they're saying, no, not enough, let us gamble with your money. Okay. And of course, Congress said yes, because they work for the banks. As Dick Durbin once famously said, frankly, they run the place. Okay, and that's absolutely true. So now Elizabeth Warren is going to stand up and fight back against that. Of course, she's going to get disdain from her esteemed colleagues for that. But first, let's show you what a real fighter looks like.
Many Wall Street institutions have exerted extraordinary influence in Washington's corridors of power. Citigroup has risen above the others. Its grip over economic policy making in the executive branch is unprecedented. Think about that kind of power. If a financial institution has become so big and so powerful that it can hold the entire country hostage, that alone is reason enough to break them up. Enough is enough. Enough is enough, with Wall Street insiders getting key position after key position and the kind of cronyism that we have seen in the executive branch. Enough is enough, with Citigroup passing 11th hour deregulatory provisions that nobody takes ownership over, but everybody will come to regret. Enough is enough.
Now, she's not just hitting Republicans there. She's not just hitting the Wall Street donors there. She said the executive branch several times. That's a Democratic president. And she is not pulling her punches. And she's saying, look, you keep appointing these bankers as your top advisors and the people running your policy. So it's not surprising that they agree that they should give away everything to the banks, which, by the way, the executive branch does agree to. Obama is the one who said to the Republicans, let's make a deal. Let's make sure that this goes in. He claims afterwards, oh, golly gee, I wish if I had it my way, that provision would not be in the bill. But wait a minute, you lobbied for it. You lobbied for it. You called House members and you called Democrats and you sent your chief of staff to say you are going to vote yes on this bill. You did that. And Elizabeth Warren is right to call you out on it. I'm tired of these Democrats pussyfooting around. Oh, my God, but it's our Democratic president. Well, if he's taking Republican positions, he's not really your president. Depends on your definition of your. I mean, if you're just, hey, Democratic Party, I don't care. Yeah, I'm a sellout. Yeah, I want the corporate money just as much. Yes, then he's your president. Okay, but if you're a progressive, not nearly so. Now, here's a real progressive. Keep taking the fight to him.
Washington already works really well for the billionaires and the big corporations and the lawyers and the lobbyists. But what about the families who lost their homes or their jobs or their retirement savings the last time Citi bet big on derivatives and lost? What about the families who are living paycheck to paycheck and saw their tax dollars go to bail out Citi just 6 years ago? We were sent here to fight for those families. It is time, it is past time for Washington to start working for them.
To give you a sense of how craven the rest of Washington is, the provision that made it into the bill was about 80 lines on this specific topic. 70 of the lines were identical to what Citigroup lobbyists handed the politicians. They didn't even try. They were like, oh, yeah, plagiarism, what name so? It's not plagiarism if I get paid for it. Okay, that guy paid me to pass this bill, and we all passed it. 70 out of the 80 lines were identical. The lobbyists wrote the bill for Citigroup. They gave it to, by the way, the guy who introduced it was Congressman Yoder from Kansas. He's literally not been heard from since. Nothing on social media. I don't know that he's in a cave somewhere, but the request for comments, nothing. He has not responded to anything. What happened, Mr. Republican from Kansas? I thought you were proud. Why don't you say, yes, I stand for Citigroup and derivatives gambling? Why don't you say it? Oh, you're in hiding because you know how deeply unpopular it is and you know who you work for. Okay, by the way, the $700 trillion in derivatives gambling, 90% of it is done by the top 5 banks. Gee, I wonder if those top 5 banks have too much power, economic power and political power. She's right. There's not a single Democrat or Republican in reality among the voters. If you said to them, hey, do you want Citigroup to bet with your money, and if they win, they keep the profits, and if they lose, you have to pay for it through your taxpayer money. Who would agree to that? Nobody would agree to that. Yet our so-called democracy just said yes. This isn't a democracy. Wolf-pack.com. Get up, let's go get him, man. Let's get our democracy back. So now, let me show you who the enemy is. Lindsey Graham is going to go out there and go tut-tut-tut to Elizabeth Warren. Listen to this.
Let me respond to my good friend from Massachusetts. You're tired, you're frustrated, you're upset about a provision in the bill you don't like, you think takes the country down the wrong road. You have every right to be upset. You have every right to vote no and to argue to bring the bill down. So here's what the senator said. For these right-wing minority hostage-taking is all they have left, a last gasp of those who cannot cope with the realities of our democracy. The time has come for those legislators who cannot cope with the reality of our democracy to get out of the way. Those were good words then, and you should read them now and apply them to yourself. My advice, don't follow her lead. She's the problem.
I love these fake politicians. My good friend from Massachusetts, she's the problem. Really, you guys are good friends? It doesn't appear so. Look at how demeaning he is. Like, oh, I know you're tired and frustrated, okay? But, you know, please, let the serious people run this place. In fact, he literally said, it wasn't in that video, but this is a quote. He said, if you follow the lead of the senator of Massachusetts, people are not going to believe you are mature enough to run the place. See, if you were really mature, you would take donor money and then you would be their bitch, like Lindsey Graham. And you would know that that is a serious and mature thing to do. Well, of course, I do declare. Where's my corporate cash? I have it now. The mature thing to do is to go ahead and please them, pleasure them. So Elizabeth Warren doesn't want to do that. She wants to actually fight for Americans. That's why she seems so out of place. Do you understand that? A person actually representing you seems out of place in Washington because she's representing you. We've lost the democracy. The rest of them are representing their donors. Wolf-pack.com. We can do this, man. 95% of Americans agree with us. Money corrupts politics. 95%. All you got to do is get your local representatives to introduce it. Let's fight back. Let's get the amendment so that Elizabeth Warren is not the exception, so that she's the rule. Now, one more. I'm not done yet, because I just love the ending of this.
Democrats don't like Wall Street bailouts. Republicans don't like Wall Street bailouts. The American people are disgusted by Wall Street bailouts. And yet, here we are, 5 years after Dodd-Frank, with Congress on the verge of ramming through a provision that would do nothing for the middle class, do nothing for community banks, do nothing but raise the risk that taxpayers will have to bail out the biggest banks once again. You know, there's a lot of talk lately about how Dodd-Frank isn't perfect. There's a lot of talk coming from Citigroup about how Dodd-Frank isn't perfect. So let me say this to anyone who is listening at Citi. I agree with you. Dodd-Frank isn't perfect. It should have broken you into pieces.
Damn. It should have broken you into pieces. Shit. What now, Citigroup? What now? You still talking? You want to reform Dodd-Frank? Is that what you want to do? Okay, that's my kind of representative. That's my kind of senator. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a Washington full of Elizabeth Warrens rather than a Washington full of people fighting against Elizabeth Warren. I dare to dream. Dream with me, fight with me. Fight with me to make it a reality. wolf-pack.com. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. I hope to God that the second hour is more pleasant, although I know the second story is going to make me livid. So hold. We have a little bit more anger coming for you guys. Now, our iPad is on the fritz again, which is always a funny word, isn't it? Mm-hmm. On the fritz. Anyway, so I just wanted to clarify one thing from yesterday before we clarify a story from yesterday. I gave you, as usual, the wrong address for how to get the $1 membership. From now till the end of the year, your first month is only $1 if you sign up for membership through the website. So the correct address is, I hope you're ready for this, TYTnetwork.com/holiday membership drive. Does that sound a little long? Yes. TYTnetwork.com/holiday membership drive. Okay, good luck. Okay. Well, if it's going to be $1, we're going to make you work for it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyway, let's go forward now.
All right. New York Magazine has apologized for the story that they ran on a 17-year-old by the name of Mohammed Islam and how he allegedly made $72 million trading stocks during his lunch break in high school. Turns out the whole story was a hoax. Now, at first, the reporter on that story, Jessica Pressler, I should say, denied any wrongdoing. They said that they did their due diligence, and then later on they issued an apology. So let me tell you how it all went down, okay? First of all, the New York Observer actually spoke to Mohammed Islam, and that was when the 17-year-old admitted that he had lied to New York Magazine about the entire story. New York Observer asked him, "You seem to be quoted saying 8 figures. That's not true, is it?" He says, "No, it's not true." "Is there any figure? Have you invested and made returns at all?" And he said, "No." "So it's total fiction?" "Yes."
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me jump in here with a couple of thoughts immediately. First, you know who I blame? Me. We're doing the story yesterday. $1,000 into $72 million? Come on, Cenk. You got to do better than that, right? I should have called Mankiewicz on that right away. Or I should have Mankiewicz'd it and said, that's not remotely true, right? And in the first story, they had 72 million in the headline, and then they took down the headline and said 8 figures, which is much vaguer. Second red flag, right? And so I should have picked up those red flags. Not on my A game yesterday, because it's and especially for a kid in high school. I mean, it's rang of such bullshit.
So I know that some people are going to criticize us, even though we're not the reporters on this story. We're simply commenting on the story. But even if it makes us look like clowns, I'm actually really happy with the way this all turned out. This makes me feel fucking awesome. Okay?
You're so funny.
Yeah, the thought of a 17-year-old making $72 million during his lunch break was devastating. Okay? And I was up at night facing a cold sweat, couldn't sleep. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? So the fact that this 17-year-old made it up actually makes me feel really good.
I mean, to my tiny bit of credit last night, I said, I mean, if it happened, it was a jackpot.
Yeah.
I believe that it happened based on the story. I mean, the New York Magazine is no joke. That's a very reputable magazine, right?
So was Rolling Stone.
Yeah, that's true. So, and they're both good magazines otherwise, okay? So, I thought it's a jackpot, and I said at the end of the story, don't try to replicate it. You won't be able to. You'll lose all your money. Don't try to turn 1,000 into 70. That's crazy. That's crazy. Don't do it, right? So now, but there's more wrinkles to this story.
There are, because as I mentioned earlier, Jessica Pressler was standing by her article, and she was like, "What? I was intentionally vague. I said that some of this, relied on rumors and things like that." Whatever. Now, here are actual excerpts from the piece, right? Mohammed provided bank statements that showed that he is worth 8 figures, and he confirmed on the record that he's worth 8 figures. Okay, so they said that they looked at bank statements and they did their fact-checking, right? Later on in their apology, they said, oh, it turns out that those were fraudulent statements. Okay. I mean, you guys, it's New York Magazine, okay? This isn't, I don't know, whatever, some other publication that doesn't have any credibility, okay? New York Magazine, you have the resources. Rolling Stone, you had the resources. You got to do honest reporting. You got to do your fact-checking, right? Now, Jessica Pressler also told CNN, I still think the piece is skeptical enough. The story says this is a rumor and draw your own conclusions. That wasn't the sense that I got from reading the piece.
No, come on. That's a backpedal and not a very good one.
No, it's a terrible backpedal. Now, here's another part of the original New York Magazine article. Mo got into trading oil and gold, and his bank account grew. Though he is shy about the 72 million number, he confirmed his net worth is in the high 8 figures. More than enough to rent an apartment in Manhattan, though his parents won't let him live in it until he turns 18, and acquire a BMW, which he can't drive because he doesn't yet have a license. Okay, those are things that you reported as facts, right?
Yeah.
So is there any evidence of the Manhattan apartment? Is there any evidence of the BMW? Come on, man.
Yeah. So now they say there is no such thing. Now Mohammed claims that, oh, I was just trading on a fake account for school, for fun, right? I don't know what to believe at this point, but if he showed them a real bank account, what is possible is that his family is incredibly wealthy, and then they were like, you idiot, what have you done?
Yeah, that's a
right?
possibility for sure.
So no, say the whole thing was made up, because we don't want people to know we have that kind of money. There's a million reasons why they wouldn't want them to know that they have that kind of money. And they're like, and so then you have the kid going backpedal. Because in the first retraction that I saw, Muhammad Islam was not saying that it was totally made up, right? Mm-hmm. He was saying, oh, it's not exactly right. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And in the second one, he was like, no, I made the whole thing up. I swear I did, right? So most likely it's all made up. Well, there could be a wrinkle to the wrinkle.
No, I hope it's all made up. Now, finally, I would like to read you the apology from New York Magazine. This is graphic number 6. A source close to the Islam family told the Washington Post, oh, I'm sorry, this is not the apology. Graphic number 7, sorry about that. Crawford had been shot, nope, that's not it either. I had the apology, but it's not in the graphic, sorry. Let me read it to you guys from my paper.
It's not the first time that's happened today.
I know, sorry about that, guys. All right, a source close to the Islam family told the Washington Post that the statements were falsified. We were duped. Our fact-checking process was obviously inadequate. We take full responsibility, and we should have known better. New York Magazine apologizes to our readers.
So now that's a full-blown apology, and they're saying they were completely duped. And I saw a story that said his family's middle class from the Queens. Okay. At this point, it's irrelevant. The main thing that you have to know is don't try day trading. You're not going to become a millionaire, okay? More likely you lose all your money, and this kid didn't do it either, so it was a scam. Everybody, bring it down.
All right, now moving on to some serious news. Earlier this year, a 22-year-old man by the name of John Crawford was shot and killed by police officers in Cleveland after he was in a Walmart carrying a BB gun, okay? It wasn't a real gun, but as he was talking to his girlfriend on the phone, he had the BB gun by his side. He was swinging it around. Someone called the cops on him. Cops showed up, they shot him, and they killed him. Now, this, of course, was one of the many stories that led to many protests. People were outraged at the footage that was released. But now we have more footage that will probably outrage even more individuals. His girlfriend was interrogated by police officers, by a detective, actually, by the name of Rodney Curd, after this incident occurred. And Rodney Curd accused her of taking drugs, said that her eyes looked funny. There was no reason to believe that. She did nothing wrong. He was accusing her of knowing that he was armed and that he had a weapon. She denied that. In fact, we have one snippet of the interrogation for you guys. Take a look at that.
Where did he get this gun?
Sir, I don't know. I swear to God. Sir, I swear to God. I don't know. On everything I love, you can give me a lie detector test and everything.
What I'm having issues with is that you tell me that you didn't know he had a firearm with him. I'm having real issues with that. Because I'm telling you, anybody around me that carries a gun, I know about it. If I'm carrying a gun, other people know about it. If I got it underneath my shirt, they know I carry. That's something well known about people.
But he didn't have a gun. It was a BB gun. wasn't a real gun, which you didn't really give him an opportunity to put down because you killed him very, very quickly, as is apparently very common practice in Ohio. They already know that because it's not like they didn't have information on what he was holding. Before he does that interrogation, he already has the facts, but he's going to cover his own ass, full well knowing that they killed her partner.
Yep.
And he doesn't care. He's like, let me do more damage to this family by trying to get her to admit something that isn't true. But by the way, what difference would it have made? We already know it wasn't a real gun. So even if she admitted it, why? Because they want to introduce doubt.
Yeah, of course.
That's the whole point. Oh, at some point somebody smoked pot. They had detention in school. The girlfriend said there was a gun, right? That's exactly what they want to say. That's why they don't mind traumatizing her and yelling at her like that after he's already dead, for Christ's sake.
The detective kept asking her whether or not she had a criminal record. She wasn't there. She did nothing wrong. There was no reason to ask her if she had a criminal record. There was no reason to ask her about her drug use. There was no reason to interrogate her the way that they did. But you're right. It was to place the blame on him, even though they had shot and killed an unarmed man, again, in a state that has open carry laws. So you can carry weapons openly if you have a certain skin color. That's okay. No one's going to call the cops on your ass. But if you're a black guy walking around in Walmart with a BB gun, well, of course, we're going to call the cops on you. Cops are going to show up and justifiably shoot you.
But we're supposed to respect the cops in Ohio. That's what they're now demanding after Andrew Hawkins, the football player, wore a shirt they didn't like. They say, how dare you disrespect us? Didn't that cop in that video look so worthy of respect there, that after you've killed someone's loved one, that you bring them in a room and accuse them of being a criminal and try to get them to give false evidence, and you know would be false evidence, against the person you just shot and killed?
Yep.
I don't know why people don't respect the Ohio cops. It's really hard to figure out. So, do these people represent you? I mean, and then people are outraged when African Americans protest. What would you do? What would you do if the situation was reversed and they view you as the enemy? And then if they kill you, the only thing they care about is protecting themselves, not protecting you, your family. They're not sorry what they did to you. They're not sorry what they compound the problems. Then they go and browbeat and intimidate and harass your family. Gee, I wonder why people protest. You'd be crazy not to protest. God damn, it's discouraging, man. Look, I know that part of it is this shit used to happen all the time and we never saw it, right? I know that. But we are seeing it. And so it's hard not to get discouraged, man. And when I see those thick-necked Follmers of the world, the guy we covered in the first hour, and he's looking like a guy out of The Sopranos and saying, you know, we'll surround you, you know, and threatening everybody, and like we're supposed to apologize to him for him killing our kids. Jesus, man. I mean, terror, right? Terror, that's a word we use a lot, terror.
But I don't even know what the worst part is. Is the worst part the fact that the police try to justify some of these shootings, or the fact that there's a sizable chunk of our country that believes what the cops say and they will defend them regardless, even if we're dealing with unarmed people getting shot and killed, even if we're dealing with unarmed people getting shot and killed from 30 feet away. By the way, I don't know if you reported this in the first hour. I just got to quickly mention this because it's ridiculous. One of the key witnesses in the Michael Brown case, who corroborated with Darren Wilson's account of what happened that night, turns out that she has a history of racism, has posted racist things online, has bipolar disorder, hasn't taken her medication in 25 years. I mean...
And is known to have lied to authorities before.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, you're lying on our behalf. Great, welcome. I'll introduce you to the grand jury. Why would you do that? You don't have to put on a defense in the grand jury. Fuck. No, yeah, no, I know. No, black people are crazy for thinking that this system does not give them justice. Hey, by the way, some of you, including myself, who were frustrated when you saw African Americans celebrate after O.J. Simpson got off, now do you begin to understand the perspective, right? Not that O.J. didn't do it, we think he did do it, right? But there was a relief of like, even though it was misplaced and O.J. got off, not because he was black, but because he was rich, right? But there was this moment of like, I can't believe any of us won. The system is always rigged against us.
Yep.
And a guy that looks like me won in this crooked justice system. It amazed people. It amazed them. It was the first time they'd ever seen it. So, but then we're told to bow our heads to the justice system. Oh man, this country's got a lot of reform we got to do, man. A ton of reform.
Can I just say one small thing about it? I promise. I'm gonna let you finish, Doug. This is what was always said. I mean, you know, we say we've come so far with racism and the way our system perceives people in America, but in reality, it's just been hidden. The people who were openly and rabid racists back in the day, before civil rights eras and after, they had to kind of go in hiding because the climate changed. Now, it's coming back out because there's things that are revealing. There's the videotape of this guy coming out. It's put on the internet, the advent of the internet. And now this guy harassing the dead man's girlfriend would have never been seen widely quickly. You don't see half the guys like Follmer, whoever the guy was, who was mad about Tamir Rice in the first hour, going on MSNBC, and then it's spread across all these networks and all of the internet. And the people who are still, like, have dug their heels in, they don't realize they're still those assholes, and they've raised new assholes, and now they have to be shown, and people are seeing them. So now these protests are coming up, and they said, how dare you say anything about what I'm doing? And they don't realize how bad that sounds, because they've always been the same people, and we can just see them again now. It's coming right back out again. They said, oh, we have your first black president. Racism is over. No, the ones who hate that site are coming back out loud again. We're seeing the same people. Not that much has changed. We talked about the income disparity in the first hour. Not that much has changed. In fact, it's gotten worse because there's more ways to hide this stuff. And the problem persists.
It's a really interesting point because it reminds me of the politicians who are not used to being caught on tape. Mm-hmm. You know, they're always like surprised that you got them on tape saying the exact opposite earlier, right? Because they had,
like Romney.
Yeah, because they didn't grow up in the YouTube generation. They didn't grow up in new media. So they're used to, like, in order to find me lying, you'd have to go find some tape from 1978 from a local TV station, which I know you're not going to do, so I can say whatever the fuck I want.
Exactly.
Right? And now for the cops, that's in spades. You never saw me browbeat people in interrogation rooms before. You never saw how much I harassed them and made up stuff. Mm-hmm. And now, oh shit, you see it, right? And so now and then they have a reaction. I guess, you know, look, I'll say two things about this, though, because this is a really important moment in history, I think. I think we might be on to a new civil rights era and movement. That's what I feel. And I'm hopeful about that, right? Because I see a lot of people getting frustrated, and even some people opening their eyes and seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that, yes, there's still a lot of pushback from people saying, no, the cops are right. All you have to do is listen to them. You know, you got a million of those guys, right? But I think there's a lot of good people in the country who are saying, well, 12-year-olds, and they shot him in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, and boy, if they had gone on to Cliven Bundy's ranch and shot his 12-year-old grandson in 2 seconds, what would conservatives have called them? Jackbooted thugs, right? Mm-hmm. So, but that process is beginning. So it's a great thing that we're seeing it. It's super frustrating to see how it unfolds right before our eyes. But it's better that we see it so we can disinfect it.
Yep. And
I hope that there is a new movement that comes out of it. All right. Well, the last part of it is, Jay, I had a question for you. I was curious about. The audience might be curious about it too. So it's a funny question. Did you know it was this bad?
Yeah. Again, and then even with the OJ analogy you put out there, it was even. By the way, OJ was rejected by a lot of black folks because he had gone too whitewashed or whatever by some people's accounts, right?
Yeah.
I was too young to even remember, but I remember hearing that.
Yep.
So it's not even like the black community, whatever you're going to call it, was like, oh, yeah, one of our guys got off. It was more like, do you see how we feel now? You know, because we've always talked about how groups won't really understand how you feel until they feel it. There's no sympathy unless they feel the pain. So not only did the OJ decision cause celebration for black folks, which looked really bad, it caused a lot of white folks to be pissed. Like, how could this happen? The system didn't work. This is amazing. Somebody needs to pay. And they were pissed. They were pissed. There was racial divide over that, obviously, over that decision. And so in seeing how many times this happened to one group in this country, they were like, you see how this feels now? Do you understand that this is what happens constantly? But that didn't really happen. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that was just one instance. It needs to happen about 1 million times before it's anywhere near even. But I don't know. I kind of missed what you were even asking me, honestly.
No, you answered it. Okay, so let's do one last story on this because it relates, and then we'll move on.
All right. Actually, the next two stories are kind of related. So why don't we take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that.
All right. All right, back on TYT. Brian Newton writes in about Elizabeth Warren, who I did a story about at the end of the first hour. Warren is Thor. She just brought the hammer down. That's great. Lori L. Bishop says, how immature of Elizabeth Warren to fight for the people. And Ryan Zephyr says, damn, that's sad as hell. A person in Washington that actually cares about citizens is out of place. Ryan, let me tell you something, man. I just came back from Washington, massively out of place. All anybody sees over there is dollar signs. Okay, now on a lighter note, Annabelle says, really digging Anna's sweater tonight.
Thanks.
You got all in a sweater mood after you talked about your dad's sweaters last night?
That's really funny. This is my holiday sweater. It's the holiday season.
You know what I want to do with you right now?
What?
Have some eggnog.
Okay, nice.
Okay. You know what? I actually got in the mood for eggnog after I said that.
You said eggnog, and I immediately thought of beer. I could totally go for a beer right now.
Really? That has no connection.
No,
you might have issues.
Well, alcohol, right? Eggnog has alcohol in it, doesn't it?
It could. That's true.
Oh, it's not always alcoholic?
No.
Then why the fuck would people drink that shit? It tastes so nasty.
No, wrong again, Bob. Okay. Just Paula says, I do really like Anna's new haircut. Looks fantastic. I am jelly.
Don't be jelly. You can cut it like this, too.
Okay. And any other serious ones? Oh, Brian again. Brian Newton. I'm also relieved that the kid didn't become another rich day trading douchebag about Muhammad Islam.
Yeah.
And finally, Wendell Whitaker says, oh, good. Now I feel better about the mediocrity of my early 20s.
Me too.
Bless your heart, Wendell. All right, members of the day are Peter Stasker, member number 198, a part of the original 200. Peter, you rock. And Rich Aycock is 2689. Rich and Peter, we got a great post game for you guys. Now, you guys know these next couple of weeks, we're putting up the whole show on YouTube, plus a little bit of the post game. So if you want to check out the whole show, if you're not a member, and $1 membership, well, the rest of the year, the next couple of weeks. So that's at tytnetwork.com/holiday membership drive. Okay.
Good job.
All right. God bless. All right. What's next, Anna?
A cop pulled over a Harvard law student for playing his music too loudly. Now, this was in Florida in Hialeah?
Hialeah.
I always mispronounce that city. That's the city my boyfriend's from.
I know. I was going to say, wait, isn't your boyfriend from there?
I get corrected every time. Anyway.
Your mispronunciation was Hialeah. No, never mind.
Anyway, so the law student actually pulled over next to the cop at a red stop sign or whatever. And
this is going great.
Let's bring it back.
Okay, all right. This is one of those for rare time for a.
Say the city again.
Hialeah.
Hialeah. Okay. A police officer in Hialeah, Florida, pulled over a law student because he was playing his music too loudly. But there's another wrinkle to the story. Not only was he playing the music too loudly, he was playing "Fuck the Police," and the cop was not amused by that. Now, I want to give you guys a little sense of what the cop heard when this law student pulled over next to him, and then I'll tell you what the law really is and whether or not the cop should have pulled him over. So the lyrics go as follows. Fuck the police, coming straight from the underground. A young N-word got it bad because I'm brown and not the other color, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority. And then it continues on to say, fuck the police. Now,
several times.
Several times, exactly. Now, the student gets pulled over. He gets 3 different tickets. I'll get into what the tickets are. But here's what the real law is, okay? In 2012, the state Supreme Court struck down any law banning loud music. And the student here, Caesar, says, I knew that because it was a case I had actually studied in law school. So he's planning on fighting these tickets. The 3 tickets he got as a result of getting pulled over include 1 for not wearing a seatbelt, 1 for driving a car with a Massachusetts license plate, he's from Massachusetts, and one for not having a paper copy of his insurance information.
Okay, he says he's not guilty of any of those things. And I like to be, I'm going to pull you over for being from Massachusetts. Wait, that's a crime? Yeah, of course I have Massachusetts license plates if I'm from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So, and he's going to Harvard Law School. This is crazy. No, but look, the crazy state of affairs in today's world is I breathe a sigh of relief at the end of the article that he had not been tased or killed, because he took a real risk with his life there, telling a cop, I know my rights. Right? I mean, that's as dangerous a thing you can do in America as you can find, right? And I mean, especially in the song that he was playing. Now, understand something. He has every right in the world to play that song. He even has a specific right to play it loud if he likes. And it happened to be on the radio when he pulled up to the cop, right? But none of that matters in the real world when they come for you, right? As we've seen over and over. So, thank God nothing terrible happened to the kid. And he'll go, and I hope he wins in court.
I hope he wins in court as well. Look, the point that I want to make about this is, it's amazing how many times the cops get the law wrong, right? They're cops. They're supposed to enforce the law, which means they should know what the law is. He should have known that he's not able to pull over someone for playing music loudly.
He doesn't care. Who cares what the law is? And the real reason he pulled him over was not the loud music or anything else. The real reason was he disrespected a police officer by playing that song near him. Biggest crime in America, disrespecting a police officer.
Don't question authority.
Yeah, and by the way, it shouldn't be surprising that Officer Garzon did not know what the law is, given that he has had 16 internal affairs cases filed against him in the 17 years since he joined the Hialeah Police Department.
Doesn't sound like a firing offense to me.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder who's on the right side of the law here. The guy with 16 internal affairs investigations or the Harvard law student?
How many times do you have to be investigated before you get fired?
Look, the answer is infinite, unless you in some way embarrass the police department or in any way hurt any of the other cops.
Isn't it kind of funny how shooting unarmed people isn't embarrassing to the police department?
I know, right? No, that's perfectly fine. You shoot others, it's no problem at all. But like, for example, if you damage your car a lot and then they had to pay for it, they'd get really, really pissed. Right? So you might get fired for that kind of property damage. But actually taking somebody's life, well, they're going to cover for you to know it.
Right. Now, what happens when police officers who are supposed to enforce the law are actually ignorant when it comes to the law? Does the Supreme Court believe that they should be protected? Well, it turns out that a robust 8-to-1 majority in the Supreme Court has recently ruled that if a cop is ignorant on the law, it's okay. Now, this case centers on Hine versus North Carolina. And it's a case where a police officer in North Carolina pulled over someone for looking suspicious. Now, cops can't just pull someone over for looking suspicious. They have to state a specific reason why they're pulling an individual over. And Hine was pulled over because of a broken brake light, okay? And so what's interesting about this case is Hine then got arrested for cocaine trafficking, okay? But this case went to the Supreme Court because it turns out that under North Carolina law, all you need to have is one working brake light. A cop can't pull you over for having one of them broken. So let me give you the details on that. The North Carolina State Court of Appeals had concluded that because state law says a car must have a stop lamp, singular, it's not illegal to operate a car that's down to one functioning brake light. But the Supreme Court decided that even though the car was legal, the arresting officer's mistaken understanding of the law was reasonable.
Now, get a load of the implication of that decision. So if you mistakenly believe that something you did is legal, but it turns out it is not legal, what's the famous phrase they always say? Ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? But now, because of the Supreme Court decision, ignorance of the law is an excuse, but only for the cops.
Only only for the cops. And think about the precedent this sets, right? That means that cops can pull you over for nothing, right? You're doing everything right, you're not breaking the law, but you happen to look suspicious, right? Cop decides to pull you over and state something that's not actually illegal. Well, I was just ignorant of the law. That's reasonable, right? I can't know everything, even though my job is to enforce the law.
I mean, we just did a story about a kid that was pulled over in Florida because he had a Massachusetts license plate. That was one of the things he was charged with. He's from Massachusetts, but the cop can say, oh, I thought that if you have Massachusetts license plates in Florida, I could just pull you over. Golly gee, did I get that wrong? Right? Now, look, part of the reason that the court goes in this direction is because you have cops and prosecutors, et cetera, that come in and say, hey, listen, man, I pulled a guy over for a broken lamp, and it turns out the law is vague on that, and I found a body in his car, which they didn't in this case, but I could have found a body in his car. What do you want me to do, let him go, right? Mm-hmm. And he's going to get away with it. You don't want that. So just give me room for error here. But the problem is we keep giving them more and more room for error. We get no room for error. They get all the room for error. And then these judges, they don't live in the real world. And let me explain that, right? So all the people they know don't get harassed by the cops, right? All the people they know are people who just are generally, the cops do look out for them. Mm-hmm. They're the powerful. These guys are Supreme Court justices, right? And these women as well. And not just that, but the circles they run in, there's a lot of lawyers, there's a lot of prosecutors, there's a lot of police officers, so they can't help but be inundated with that perspective and that point of view.
Right.
But what they don't see is the point of view of the average citizen out there getting harassed by the cops, and the cop going, oh, I guess I was wrong about that. Who cares, right?
But how, insulated do you have to be to not understand that a broken taillight or a broken brake light offense is a common thing, right? So cops usually pull you over for those types of things. So I would assume that a cop would know what the laws are when it comes to functioning elements of your vehicle.
No, I think that they don't know. I don't think Sam Alito or most of the other justices on there, remember it was 8-1, only Sonia Sotomayor voted against it, have ever gotten pulled over for a brake light being out when it wasn't actually out. I don't think they've ever experienced that. And if you told them that, they might even be a little like, really? Because they just haven't lived it. They don't know it.
I just don't, I don't know. I haven't lived their life, which is why I don't understand their perspective. Can I just state one of their, how they reasoned in this case? They said to be reasonable, which is what they expect of the cops, is not to be perfect. And so the Fourth Amendment allows for some mistakes on the part of government officials. I get it, but we're talking about a brake light. That is one of the most common things that cops have to deal with when it comes to cars and moving violations and things like that.
But they don't give the same benefit of the doubt to the citizens.
No, they don't.
They don't say, hey, you broke that law, but, I mean, you were being fairly reasonable when you broke it. When has that defense ever worked in court?
Never. In fact, let me give you a specific example. This is anecdotal evidence of something I went through. I once got a U-turn ticket even though I made a U-turn in an intersection that did not have a sign saying no U-turns. Usually there's a sign that says no U-turns, right? Made the U-turn, didn't think it would be a big deal. All of a sudden I get pulled over. You know what the cop tells me? You got pulled over because you made a U-turn in a business district. How am I supposed to know I'm not allowed to make a U-turn in a business district, right? So I explained that to him. Do you think he cared? Hell no. I got that ticket, paid hundreds of dollars, went to traffic school, went through a headache over that.
You should have just gone all the way to the Supreme Court and said, I made a reasonable mistake. I'm sure since you give the cops the benefit of the doubt, you'll give me the benefit of the doubt too, right?
Of course.
All right. Yeah. At least there was one reasonable justice. Sonia Sotomayor said, permitting mistakes of law to justify seizures has the perverse effect of preventing or delaying the clarification of the law. Under such an approach, courts need not interpret statutory language, but can instead simply decide whether an officer's interpretation was reasonable. So there's another layer to it, where she says, you don't even have to screw up the fixed up law. You don't have to fix the screwed up laws. You can just be like, let the cops handle it in a reasonable way, and we won't hold them to it anyway.
Yep.
Last thing. So then also say the cop they can start saying, you guys may have covered this. Then they can start saying stuff like, well, I didn't know, say in the North Carolina case, I didn't know that one light, even though they do know it. They can act like they don't know things and pull people over. And then once they do, say the citizen, as in this other case, knew what he was talking about. Are you challenging me, sir? the cop gets all huffy. We know how cops get huffy when you challenge them on anything. So if you do know the law and then they don't, they get huffy, and then you have yourself in a situation where you just might get shot. You know, it all can build up to just everything is on their side.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do in the postgame, because we got to do some more stories, right? I'm going to explain to you why me being a conservative in law school was right, given this case.
Damn.
Interesting. And if you're not interested enough by that story, I will tell you what a liar I was when I was a prosecutor.
Okay.
Not in bad ways, you'll see. I think you'll like this story. That's for the members.
I love this next story. This
Yep.
is my favorite story of the day. Barbara Walters has decided that George Clooney's wife, Amal Clooney, is the most fascinating woman of 2014. Not because she's a humanitarian lawyer, not because she has worked with the UN, not because she's one of the most intelligent women I have ever read about in my entire life, but because she married George Clooney. In fact, I am going to quote what Barbara Walters had to say about Amal Clooney. She says, in her presentation of the award, Walters calls marrying George Clooney, quote, one of the greatest achievements in human history. Okay, European astronauts landed a probe on a moving comet, okay? That's not the greatest achievement in human history, but marrying George Clooney is, okay?
Now, look, to be fair to Barbara Walters, obviously she's being tongue-in-cheek to some degree, right? But the flip side of that is
No,
that...
she's not.
No. The flip side of that is you actually did name her one of the most fascinating people because she married George Clooney. You weren't kidding about that. You were totally serious about it.
In fact, if you don't believe us when we say she wasn't kidding about that, take a look at this video.
How do I introduce her? I guess the question is, what does it take to fascinate one of the most fascinating men in the world? She is known primarily through her spouse, and while we know little about her, we know a great deal about him. And he has fascinated many women, especially me. Amal Alamuddin, known now as Amal Clooney, is suddenly in that stratosphere that we reserve for the Jackie O's or the Princess Di's and Kate Middletons. That is, everything she does, says, or wears is officially fascinating.
That was really embarrassing. Okay,
What
I really
was
wish
that?
I hadn't seen that. Because Barbara Walters, in a lot of ways, broke through the ranks.
I know.
You know, in media as a woman, and she's a groundbreaking journalist, or was. And so, like, this whole fascinating thing is a little repulsive to begin with, right? But instead of picking people like Malala Yousafzai, or you go and pick somebody, oh, you got George Clooney. You're like Jackie O and Princess Di and all the other people who married into fame. Wow, that's really impressive. That's fascinating.
No, that was so bad. And look, I have a lot of respect for Barbara Walters, specifically for the things that you mentioned. One of the first female anchors in America, amazing, like, journalist back in the day. Then, I don't know, she got older, and I'm not saying that her age had anything to do with it, but she, like, kind of went in a different direction, right?
She went in the wide-eyed direction.
I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was.
Barbs?
Anyway, okay, but then I started thinking about what the reaction would be of everyone, right? If, like, I don't know, Brian Williams did that piece, and Brian Williams was like, you know, fuck the fact that she's a humanitarian lawyer. Why don't we focus on the fact that she married George Clooney, and let's also talk about her awesome wardrobe. People would be pretty outraged by it, right?
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, right? She gets away with it because she's a woman.
Yeah.
Right? If a guy had been like, I find you really fascinating because you landed a really hot guy. People are like, dude, what are you talking about, right? So, and I'm not sure that it's any better coming from a woman.
No, I actually am kind of embarrassed for Barbara Walters for presenting her that way. Okay, so let me just really quickly, before you jump in, tell you, like, what her achievements are, because she's amazing, okay? She makes me feel like a failure in life. So as a student at NYU, she worked as a clerk at the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit with Sonia Sotomayor, who of course is now a Supreme Court Justice. She served as an advisor to the United Nations as a consultant on crises in Syria and Lebanon, and has many high-profile clients. And also in 2014 alone, she has worked with British Foreign Secretary William Hague to discuss how to drive forward international action to protect children in conflict zones from rape and sexual violence. I mean, this woman is amazing.
They wanted her to be part of a UN committee to look into violations of the rules of war in the Gaza Strip, but she recused herself and said she was horrified by the situation and especially the civilian casualties that were caused, and believe that there should be a strong independent investigation. So no question that she's a person who's very accomplished. But now, look, let's also be fair and honest here and say that if she had not married George Clooney, she would not have made the list
at all.
At all. Right?
That's true. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. But I mean, look, I think back at the time when Barack Obama had talked about an attorney here in California, her name, Kamala Harris, right? Remember when he said that Kamala Harris was beautiful and successful? Something along those lines.
Yes, that's right.
But the fact that he focused on her beauty made him like the topic of discussion. Everyone was criticizing him. Everyone was outraged.
Especially Michelle Obama.
So like, why is it cool to like criticize the crap out of the president when he says something like that? But then if a woman does it, it's okay. Like, I don't know. It was a weird way of presenting it. And the first sentence in her presentation was, what can we say about the most fascinating woman in our list? Well, what does it take to fascinate the most fascinating man? I mean, that was...
Oh, that was framing out of the 1950s. That was so uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to go home to my wife and be like, I find you really fascinating because you have fascinated me.
Oh, my God, I died.
And since I am so fascinating, you are fascinating for fascinating me. Congratulations. I'm sure she'll really appreciate that.
Anyway, I love it.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. A little bit of commentary. I thought we would go on with that, but
no, I mean, God bless. We agree. That's the issue. I mean, and look, I thought losing Clooney was an American tragedy. I thought he was going to be the one guy that went all the way and was going to be, single till he's 85 and dating the hottest chicks forever. Okay, so that was a tragedy. It happened. But I don't hold it against Amal. She seems like a perfectly lovely woman.
I love when married men with hot wives who take really, really good care of them complain about being married. Or complain about how, like, other people aren't bachelors for life because that's the real way of living.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, George? Yeah, come on, dude. Why'd you let us down? No, I guess we want to live a little vicariously. Grass is always greener. No, but grass is not greener. I know it's not greener.
Yeah.
It's just another thing that would also have been fun, right? So like this, I'm going to tell you a needlessly schmoopy story for no reason is we're precipitously running out of time. Anyway, this morning my daughter, 2-year-old daughter, came down or got up. I went and got her from the crib, and we just hung out for like an hour downstairs while I was doing work. And normally kids are like a little hyperactive and stuff, but she'd just woken up, so she wasn't. So she came and sat on my lap while I read the stories and I emailed and stuff. And then I'd print out the stories and she'd go down, get it from the printer and give it to me. Okay. And we had the loveliest time in the world. I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Okay. So the grass is not greener on the other side.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm just saying the other side was also fun. Just keep it real.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to do 2 more stories. Sorry.
Go.
All right. A&E has decided to greenlight a new reality show that features a pastor who used to be a cop who will convince prostitutes to stop doing what they do, okay? And he has 8 minutes to do so.
I love TV. It's so fake.
So the first time, yeah, I'm sure that huge portions of the show will be fake, if not all of it. But let's just, for the sake of this conversation, pretend as though it's all real, right? Okay. When I first read like a quick summary of this show, I was disgusted by it, right? Because I felt like it was exploiting people in the sex work industry. It was making an assumption that everyone in the sex work industry is there because they're forced to be there. And also, what are you going to do? You're going to convince them not to do it anymore, and then are you going to provide them jobs? But it turns out that the producers of the show actually have everything figured out, okay? And if you take their word for it, it doesn't sound that bad.
Okay.
Okay? So first, let me give you the whole, gist of the show. 8 episodes of 8 minutes, working title. A series featuring cop-turned-pastor Kevin Brown surprising escorts in hotel rooms. I don't know if that's a good idea. And offering to rescue them from a life of trading sex for cash. In each episode, Brown has 8 minutes to make his case, okay? So I was like, why the hell does he do it in 8 minutes? I don't get it. And their reasoning is, look, if she is, a sex worker, she shows up and she decides that she doesn't want to leave the sex work industry, she's able to go back to the pimp, if there is a pimp, and say, no, that guy was shady, I didn't want to go through with it, and then nothing seems sketchy, right?
That's a convenient excuse.
That
It's bullshit.
sounds like
It's
a convenient
done.
excuse,
It's
but
done for TV just to get it done really quickly. Because they don't want to see you talking to her for a whole hour. That'll bore people.
that's true.
Okay,
That's a good
the
point.
reality is, that's what I mean by it's fake. What, like, if you went to the 9th minute to try to save her life, that'd be a bad thing? Like, no, I gotta cut it off in 8 minutes. Oh, we were on the edge? Well, sad day, you're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So there's that part of it. And also, what was I gonna say? If they do decide that they no longer want to do sex work, he actually will take them into like a van or something, take them to a different city, if not a different state, take them to rehab if they need it, a halfway house, and then start helping them find a job so they can kind of transition out of it. So that was the part that I was more concerned about, right? Because I thought that it was exploiting them. It turns out that they have to consent in order to have that footage released for the show. So if they decide that they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. It's not as terrible as it sounds on its face, but nonetheless, I still feel like it's exploiting people for entertainment.
Yeah, look, shows that wind up creating these false dramas now have downsides because they're false, right? In real life, you can go 9 minutes, you can go 19 minutes to try to save her life if you think that's what's at stake, right? At the same time, it doesn't mean they don't do anything that's good. They could actually do a lot that's good, right? So they might be helping a lot of those women out if they really don't want a life of prostitution. And that issue is complicated. We think prostitution should be legal, so we don't have this view of like, oh my God, every prostitute has to be rescued, right?
Right.
But at the same time, of course, in reality, some of them are in really tough times, and they appreciate that help. And I know they got to entertain people. I know that's why they do it. But there's just the artificialness of the 8 minutes drives me crazy.
It does. It seems like it's a game show as opposed to something that's supposed to help people.
And if we couldn't help you in time for the commercial break, well, then that's a sad day for you, and out into the streets you go.
Yeah. I mean, does it really take as little as 8 minutes to convince someone to walk away from something like that? And I'm not saying something like that as if it's a good situation, but they're there because they feel, if they truly don't want to be there, they might be there because they feel desperate, right? 8 minutes might not be enough to convince them to, you know, walk away from a pimp or someone that might be abusive.
Yeah, but they've done market studies to know that 9-minute segments bore people. Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Final story for you guys. Penis crucifix.
Yes.
Back in the summer, Tom Ford designed what was referred to as the penis necklace. And now a lot of Christians are really upset because the penis necklace actually ends up looking like a crucifix in the shape of a penis. Okay, so we have images for you guys. And it costs $790. It's made of...
Why would you pay $790 to have a penis around your neck? You can probably get that for free.
Yeah, 14 karat gold. Anyway, look, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is, of course, the salacious nature of it is interesting, but also, like, even though I'm not really religious, and I just feel like this is unnecessary.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. Look, I'm pretty sure that I'm in safe ground when I say that I'm not in favor of religion. If you watch the show, you know that. This seems like it's rubbing it in people's face.
Yeah, 100%.
Or their neck in this case.
Now, Tom Ford is gay. He's had a longtime partner since 1986, so I can understand if he has maybe some disdain towards some religious people because of gay rights and all of that stuff. Right. I don't know. I'm just speculating on that.
Speculation.
But nonetheless, yeah, it just seems a little excessive, and it seems like you are rubbing it in their face, and it just doesn't help any cause when you create a crucifix in the shape of a penis.
Like, don't get us wrong. We call the country America. You're allowed to do whatever you want, and if people want to pay $790 for a cock on their neck, have at it, hoss, right?
People pay a lot of money for that cock thing on their chin.
Yeah.
That sex toy, I don't know what it's called.
The cock thing on your chin, you know what we're talking about. So people pay a lot of money for a lot of things, okay? But it seems like it's gratuitously offensive.
Yes, I agree.
And so, to each his own, but I'm not a big fan.
This more so than other things that offend religious folks? I see this as right along the same lines. Why is this one more? Because it's a penis?
Like what else? Give me a comparison.
Yeah, because there's no need for it. I mean, I actually felt the same way about old school Robert Mapplethorpe exhibit where he put the crucifix in urine, right? Mm-hmm. I got strong feelings about religion. Just watched earlier in this show, right? Very strong feelings. But that's where you're trying to piss people off without any benefit. There's no discussion of like, hey, wait, maybe there's an issue with religion and maybe that you should look into it more. In fact, it's counterproductive. They view people criticizing their religion as the guys who are promoting penises on your neck and putting the crucifix in pee. Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like it's annoying, and you're obviously doing it for shock value, and you're not doing anybody good except your own career because you're saying, here, look at me, look at me. And that's annoying.
I almost see this as less. It's a necklace. Whatever. People get into arguments where they say, how stupid are you? What the fuck is wrong with you? And then there's personal attacks at the person because they're believing in something that doesn't seem likely. So, I mean, that I feel like would generate more of an offensive reaction than, oh, you have a necklace with a dick, and it kind of looks like a cross. I don't know. It just seems like it's not as in your face. You have to actually look at it and go, wait a second, you know what that looks like? I mean, you know, you're not saying anything to anyone.
But it's titled the penis necklace, right? And it's a crucifix, so it's not. He wasn't trying to hide anything.
Right, but it's not. It's not entitled
sly.
The Jesus penis. You know, it's not entitled or crucifix. It's not entitled.
That's good. That's clever.
That would have been a good master.
That's what we should have gone with. Okay. It's not like it's entitled Penis of Nazareth. Okay. And you got to give him credit, though. He's hanging in there. I don't know if that's real life. All right. What we've learned on today's show is that JR does not believe that penises should be in your face. No, he actually doesn't mind if they're in your face.
Right, or on your neck.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anyways, okay. You knew we'd gone just a little too far. All right, when we come back live for the members, post-game, where I will tell you why I was a conservative as a prosecutor and why I was right, and how I lied. So that'll be fascinating. Okay, come back. I'm back on the Young Turks post game. Okay, so now I was a conservative in law school. If you watch Mad as Hell, you'll see that, right? And I have changed some of my opinions, but not most of them. Okay, mm-hmm. And so this is a long-running dispute between me and Dave Kohler, yada yada. Okay, skip all that. So one of the things that I was really annoyed as a conservative was this rule that says that if the cops did something wrong. They broke a rule of some sort, a law of some sort, and they wound up getting evidence they shouldn't have gotten. We throw out that evidence. Okay? And we can't hold it against the defendant. And that drove me crazy. Okay? Because I was like, look, we have the evidence. It's crazy to throw it out. It's an injustice to throw it out because we're not just concerned about the defendant, we're concerned about everybody. I'm also concerned about the victim, right? What if you found evidence, like I said in the North Carolina case, that he had a body in his trunk, right? And you know he killed somebody. You're just going to let him go because you pulled him over for the wrong reason? So now, of course, that means that there has to be other consequences. You can't just let the cops break all the laws and not have any consequences. And I thought the proper consequences, well, the cop broke the law, so why don't you punish the cop, right? Why are you punishing us, the citizens, by letting the guilty guy go free?
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So then I realized, and it connects to all the stuff that's going on now. The reason they don't do that, and they had to come up with this rule that in my mind and in a lot of people's mind it doesn't make any sense, is because they will never punish the cops under any circumstance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they punish, and it goes further, if you punish the cops for really breaking the law, right, as in how they got the evidence. So, for example, let's say you need a warrant to go into somebody's house, and the cop says, screw the warrant, I'm going in anyway, okay? Now, under the way the law stands, if they were to actually really apply it, anything they found in the house they couldn't use.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, dead bodies, whatever, they couldn't use it, right? I think the way it should work is, yeah, they can use it, but then the cop has to be punished for not getting a warrant like he was supposed to. But if you do that, then the cops not only they'll be pissed and they'll fight back and they won't allow it, but they won't do their job.
Right.
Then they'll be like, oh, if I can be punished for anything, here's my new job. It's protecting the parking lot of Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And also, I mean, considering our current justice system, there are very few laws that protect our rights. And so if you set that standard where a cop can just break into your home without a warrant, because, hey, there might be evidence there that might, be in his favor or whatever prosecutor's favor, then cops are going to do it all the time.
So, yeah, we can't have that. I'm a huge believer in the Constitution, whether I'm a conservative, liberal, or whatever I've called myself. Of course, you need a warrant, right? That's to protect us. That's the whole point of the Constitution. So the question is, what happens, what are the consequences when you don't have a warrant and you found something, right? And I think my rule is fairer, but in the real world, they have adopted a less fair rule, in my opinion, just because they know the cops will never risk themselves. Isn't that amazing? And these are the guys who are constantly talking about, we have a tough job, we have a tough job, we have a tough job. Now, at this point, it's not that tough when you just shoot people on sight, right? And we had to change all the rules to make it a little more unfair, because if we said, hey, we would punish you for breaking the law, you'd never do your job. That's maddening, man. That's super frustrating. And don't get me wrong, you got loved ones who are cops, etc. Always understand, we're liberals and progressives. We're not, of course, not all cops are bad, of course. And do some cops take, risks in protecting us? Of course they do. But that's supposed to be the job.
Right.
That's supposed to be the job. It's like a firefighter saying, well, I'm not going into that house. It's on fire. What do you want me to do? Go into a house that's on fire? Yeah, you're a firefighter.
Yeah.
Right? But to their credit, the firefighters don't say that.
Yeah.
Right? But the cops are like, what do you want me to do? Risk my life? Yeah, that's kind of in the job description, right?
Yeah. All these cop stories, so I'll bring in a personal element to it. All these cop stories lately have been really difficult to cover because not only do they depress me, just because I know that there's a lack of justice in a lot of these cases, but also now all of a sudden I know people who are cops, and they're people that I really care about and people that I really value, and I care about what they think about me. And I know they watch the show, and I know they hear the things that I have to say, and I know that they disagree with me, and it's kind of painful, Especially because when it comes to people in my personal life, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't like arguing. I will go to extreme lengths to avoid an argument, right? So in one case, I'm just gonna put it, Christian sister's a cop, okay? And
you
so
just put that out there.
I just put it out there.
Okay.
And
in a minute, I'm gonna put out the lie that I promised.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be interested to see if you guys judge me on my lie when I was a prosecutor.
Okay.